Alright chat, this is a ranking of every new movie of 2025 I've seen. Spoilers and gasp, my opinions ahead.
Ay, 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 ay.
I know guys, this is a pretty hot take to start off with. Truly, and I mean this, one of the worst, most contrived, and poorly thought out films I have ever seen. Just truly god-awful in every way, but by God, is it entertaining as hell. From every bad edit to every wildly tonally wrong Ice Cube delivery, I could not stop laughing at this. So if you actually like yourself and so haven't seen this movie, Ice Cube is like a government surveillance guy and we were watching the film through his computer for the whole thing, which definitely wasn't a budget thing. Nah, it's the director's vision. Anyway, instead of protecting America with his government Discord mod powers, he harasses his children, and then like aliens appear, and then like Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid appears, and then like Agent Coulson appears, and yeah, it's very much a and then kind of script. Basically, Ice Cube teams up with his daughter, who's like a bioengineer, to put a virus on a SanDisk to plug into a server, so when the aliens eat this guy's PC, they get destroyed from eating the raw data of League of Legends. And I mean, the whole thing is just terrible. Okay, it just has terrible acting, with exposition out the wazoo. It's honestly Tommy Wiseau level, I swear. I have seen Fortnite live events that are less contrived than this. Well done, Amazon. Okay, like, I'm sorry, but like, what is this, okay? I watched both of the Kill Bill films for the first time just before watching this, and whilst I hate Tarantino's whingy baby incel loser attitude, I have to confess that they are truly amazing films with great pacing, superb action, and iconic scripts that are some of the best films I've seen. This, however, is very much not that. The guy who is ever so delicate of his legacy decided that Fortnite was the means in which he wanted to continue the franchise, and I mean genuinely, what is this? It's so stilted and terrible in every way, and because it's Fortnite, you have to like lose the brutality in the action for it to work, which is kind of Kill Bill's whole thing. I swear I am not averse to whimsy, this is just stupid. I'll be the roundabout. The words will make you out and out. Yeah, this was just immeasurably disappointing in every way for me. This film sacrifices its interesting concepts and plots of humanity after Earth, where the soul lies, and what it's like to deal with yourself directly for terrible comedy, horny comedy, and Americanized melodrama. It's the fact the film tries to be everything at the same time that ruins it. Really screams of death by committee. There was an interesting look into the human condition here that was sacrificed in pursuit of greater attracting a Western mainstream audience. In essence, there's a space colony that abandoned a decaying Earth. Mickey signs up to be a worker that is respawned and cloned every time he dies, and then, oh no, one of his prior bodies is still alive, and now there's two Mickeys! No performance was good. Like, the best was Mickey 18 Robert Pattinson, but that was basically just slightly pissed off Robert Pattinson. It was still better than Mickey 17, who was Robert Pattinson's audition to replace Justin Roiland as Morty. I could not understand what he was saying in like almost every scene if I zoned out for like a second. What was that accent? Character motivations and movie themes flip and flop for no discernible reason between trying to be the goofiest film ever, which it very much isn't, and trying to be an allegory for nickel alignments, which the film poorly and inaccurately represents. I truly and unironically mean it when I say this film insists upon itself.
My money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds. I like to see you wiggle wiggle, for sure. Make me wanna dribble dribble, you know.
Guys, Jack Black rode Jason Momoa in this movie 10 out of 10. This was simultaneously one of the worst and best films I've seen in cinemas. It has a truly nothing burger ass AI plotline where no character goes on an arc whatsoever, nothing seems to have consequences, conflict arises from nowhere for no reason, and all of this was displayed with an awful green screen job. That being said, oh, it is a treat to see, and it is definitely a core cinema memory for me. So many times I broke down laughing with my mate from the stupid lines like chicken jockey and no chungus and like other shit like him jumping up to catch that steak frisbee thing. In terms of what I liked, you know, I liked it when Jeb appeared. You know, I liked it when they honored Technoblade. Jack Black and Jason Momoa seemed like they were having a good time on set. I mean, in terms of wrestlers turned actors, I can never see Dwayne being willing to do some of this, so, you know, respect to Momoa for being willing to play the fool. I thought it was hilarious how Dan TDM quite literally appeared for a frame in this movie. It was like they went, oh balls, we really get him in the key angle for this scene. Oh, what are we gonna do? Oh, don't worry, Jerry, we'll just do like a Dan TDM jump scare so he's still in it. Oh, thanks, Phil, you're the best. That being said, I feel awful for the families who came in to have a fun time with their kids and had to deal with teenagers at the back of my cinema yelling out lines and clapping at certain bits. Like, you know, that's the sort of joke I'd make hypothetically. Like, I'd say, wouldn't it be funny if when Steve said, we've got to mine, we've got to craft, we've got to Minecraft, that, like, the whole cinema, like, got up and clapped? But, like, doing that for real is kind of cringe and main character syndrome. I could tell that, like, one of the kids that was in the group of people that was doing this just wanted to not be associated with his friends in any way possible. Not gonna lie though, it was very funny though when like a Brexit geezer yelled from the cinema. He was like, "Oh, lads, you gotta shut the F up and watch the movie!" Like, the idea that you'd yell that in front of a horde of children at a screening at the Minecraft movie is pretty epic. I cannot believe I'm going to utter these words. Seth Rogen is too good for this movie. Okay, so, like, what about if Keanu was, like, an angel, and, like, Seth Rogen was a crypto bro? That is the concept and plot of this movie, and I refuse to elaborate further. Aziz, lead and director, seems like a nice guy, but is frankly just a terrible actor, I'm sorry. Along with Keanu's by-the-book stilted awkward acting, it gets to a point where this feels like a Darman video at points. When the emotions of your movie are being solely held up by Seth motherflippin' Rogen, you know there's a problem. You know, it got a few laughs out of me, it has some occasional nice shots, and wasn't terribly paced, but otherwise it's just a really poor outing that Rogen definitely did, just so he could say he got to be in a movie with Keanu. Ticket admission was justified, however, by getting to hear Keanu say chicken nuggies and Seth Rogen yell at clankers. Guys, we did it. We found corruption in real time. You know, I got a couple of chuckles here and there, and Stitch is well animated enough, but the story is just so muddled and just frankly a worse version of the original that completely misses a lot of the themes of the original in service of not really saying its own thing. As someone who grew up with the original film, I just don't understand why you'd sacrifice the unique and energetic anime-esque art style for such a bland-looking film. Just like all these remakes, I have to ask, creatively, why does this need to exist? What do you want me to say? It was Dog Man the movie. Well, it was fine. Like, I loved Dav Pilkey's work from my childhood and really enjoyed the Captain Underpants movie, but this was frankly just a big letdown in comparison. It does have some good quips and the animation is really creative and fun, alongside matching the original's charming style, but otherwise it's kind of just a standard children's movie with a horrifying concept if you think about it too much. Like, bro just got decapitated, even though he was perfectly alive, to have his head replaced by a dog. I know we're talking about a children's film, but, you know, I don't think it's a terrible script. It's very much let down by the voice acting though, which is at best serviceable, but otherwise can be quite dull and lifeless, which dampens a film with such energetic animation. That being said, it succumbs a little to brain rot culture and a need to move at 800 miles a minute to keep children's attentions, which does concern me because it's kind of the first time I've experienced that in the cinema. I'm sorry, okay, but like, TikTok was a massive mistake, and when this brain rotted generation grows up into jobs of power, we will see unbelievable chaos. I admit this was questionable as to whether or not I should actually include this on the list, but Letterboxd has it, I saw it, it was a movie I saw in the cinema, I want to talk about it. So this was one of those weird anime early viewing movies that merges all the episodes into like a single viewing event. And I mean, I liked it because it was Dandadan and I like Dandadan, but it's kind of like a weak arc in the story anyway. But then you only show a segment of the most boring section of the arc, not to actually, you know, show the interesting bits. You know, that's a weird directorial decision. So much time is wasted on nothingness in this, when you could have cut all of that and cut the god-awful director interviews and actually shown another episode that would have concluded that segment of the arc properly. I just don't know why this needed to be portrayed as like a movie or as the Evil Eye arc movie, when no, it isn't the full arc, nor is it the best bits of the arc. They didn't even play the new opening or anything, which I don't think is like an unreasonable request, you know, for going and paying to see this early. It was pretty blue ballsy, and I heard a lot of people saying the same thing as they left. I've read the manga though from when the first season concluded, and so I don't feel quite so bitter, but I imagine if you are anime only, you'd be pretty upset.
We're doing a sequel. We're back by popular demand. Come on, everybody, strike up the band.
This just didn't have the sauce for me. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think the film has good themes and messages at its heart, but I just don't think the writers are good enough to work it in properly. I don't know. Okay, so like basically Judy and Nick are being bashed as partners. They take on a case revolving around a snake in the city, with reptiles being discriminated against in Zootopia. Turns out though that his grandma made the season machine stuff that like turns on the different habitats for Zootopia. So it's up to Judy to prove the snake's innocence and prove that this Lynx family of frauds who stole the deeds to the project from the grandma and ostracized all reptiles to gain their wealth and political power. Fundamentally, I don't think this is a bad idea for a sequel. I just don't think the concept is developed enough to feel worthwhile or satisfying to watch. The animation as well felt a little poor and unenergetic. Maybe I'm just spoiled from other work on the market, but it wasn't really engaging me on a visual level. I also found it very unfunny as well. Like, I wasn't cringing, but like I maybe chuckled like twice during the film. It's fine, but ultimately very unsatisfying. Andy Samberg was a cool twist villain though.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.
This was a wholesome combination of Lilo and Stitch and Luca with a dash of Shark Tale that unfortunately just sort of comes out feeling a little underbaked. Basically, Elio is an orphan child who lives under his NASA aunt that struggles to make friends and so seeks aliens who he believes will finally embrace and understand him. Elio, after his abduction, lies his way into being considered the king of Earth and so is tasked with settling a major intergalactic conflict with this big and scary alien race. However, Elio befriends the prince of this alien race, and then basically stuff happens until they realize the evil and scary aliens weren't evil and scary after all. And then everybody's chill and won't destroy planets anymore. Whilst I enjoyed this film, I can't gloss aside this feeling of disappointment and unfulfillment I have after watching. It's not bad, it just feels very rushed, and the characters don't feel like they've had the breathing room to justify their strong feelings. Gordon, the alien prince, and Elio are shown to be friendly with each other, but it's just a montage and a couple of scenes. They don't really come across as super close, but the film acts like they're like soul bonded. It's the same with the aunt and Elio. They haven't shared a lot of scenes together, and yet we are supposed to believe there's this like strong bond that was always there and allowed the aunt to distinguish that like this clone thing wasn't the real Elio, and then, you know, she'd do all these things to get him back. I don't know, it's not like everything is completely unmotivated. It's, as I say, just a little underbaked. Bro, what was that post-credit scene? Completely pointless ass scene that adds nothing and feels like they went, oh shoot, we need to put something in, I don't know, just use this cut scene from the film for it, I don't know. Besides that, in my opinion, you know, this is pretty solid. It's not like amazing or anything, but enjoyable for me at least. Harrison Ford and Carl Lumbly are the standouts here, really sell their emotions here. You really begin to care for Ross, and his arc particularly. Really cool how this film sort of acts like a sequel to The Incredible Hulk as well. I think the thing that stood out to me with this is how it felt very different directorially. It was a lot more grounded and a lot more slow paced, with a particular focus on establishing settings and locations in contrast to most post-Endgame stuff. The action is pretty solid in my opinion. I really appreciate that despite all of Cap's new tech that they show off in this film, he isn't like completely invulnerable. I think Red Hulk is frankly handled well, and when it comes in, you know, it's really cool and plays well with the fact that we already kind of know he's coming because of the poster and all the marketing. The main problem with this film is that you can tell it's been reshot really easily. Certain things can feel a little choppy. Giancarlo Esposito, while pretty decent in this, does feel added in to bulk out the reasoning of Stan's plans. I would have complained if he wasn't there to add a bit of weight to Stan's control, but it does feel a bit disjointed into the film. This film clearly wants to harken back to Winter Soldier, which it just unfortunately isn't competent enough to achieve. I don't think it's bad, just everyone working on this hasn't got the talent to achieve that level of work. It's not awful, there are definitely a couple of very empty feeling scenes in this that feel very forced, potentially reshoots to help assist with problems in understanding the plot, you know, I don't know. There was that scene on the plane which was exceptionally bad, just basically being exposition and then like a Peloton ad. Yeah, you know, I liked it. It has some good performances, but nothing that left me stunned, unlike some people. I think the story is okay, but I think I just don't vibe super well with Yorgos Lanthimos' filmmaking. Okay, so like the Breaking Bad guy is this conspiracy theorist who gaslights his cousin into believing Emma Stone is an alien. They kidnap her and then like torture her for about an hour, and then spoiler stuff happens that answers the question of whether she actually was an alien. I hate how Yorgos Lanthimos' films swap from show don't tell to tell, the movie's finishing, fuck, tell. I start to get engaged in the story and the intrigue of his films, and then as soon as I'm starting to get into it, the third act comes along and is so overt that it's a functional blue balls to enjoyment and undermines what made the film's first two acts good and fundamentally ruins the concept of his films. It's the same sort of thing with Poor Things.
There's a magic place where dreams are made. Toys stacked so high you'll see them from far away.
I gotta say, I am so sorry to all the other animated feature nominees at this year's Oscars. If this somehow doesn't win, I will be very shocked. You know, I wanted Chainsaw Man to even get nominated, but I don't think anything is going to be able to stand against this. It's good, but massive overexposure to these songs definitely lessens their effect to some degree. But hell, I still thought this was very good, and I understand the mentality that the animation here is better and at least fully conceivable to watch, rather than Across the Spider-Verse, with its sort of more chaotic animation. I just wish there were more defined action scenes in this, because frankly they were the best bits. Not gonna lie, this was pretty overhyped, but it was still really cool and a good film. Turns out getting people who actually understand the source material to make an adaptation makes it better. The cast is really solid, especially Hiccup, who really sells the whole thing. Not gonna lie though, the sound mixing on the dialogue could have been a bit more distinct. In scenes with dragons and fire swirling, it became a little hard to make out exactly what people were saying. A version of this with subtitles would probably be closer to a 75, if not a 75. Yeah, that's right, baby. Screw Huntrix, screw Toothless, David Attenborough, the GOAT. I mean, like, you know, what do you want me to say, okay? This is objectively correct, factual information that had really beautiful footage. I only saw this because I know some of the consultants on this. You know, I felt obliged to put it into this list, but, like, it's a documentary about the ocean that's correct and is cool. What do you know, what else can I say? Okay, so I'll be honest, this kind of has a bit of a weak start, but it is a real positive shift for the attitude for the MCU, with direction and writing moving away from traditional formatting to distinctly formatted stories with deeper themes and arcs for all of its characters. I don't think it's quite as good as some people have been saying, but I understand why it's attracted so much hype, as it finally feels, after nearly 2 phases, we are seeing the results and building of the plot into Doomsday. I'm admittedly, you know, still here after all this time, but really this film feels like it should have come a lot sooner. I'm happy and glad it's here now. The themes of tackling depression and purpose are really well approached in this, although they may be a little lost in everything going on. That being said, Sentry is so sick, and is the first time I have genuinely been engaged in the fear of a villain since Thanos. I hope we get more of him in both forms across the MCU over the next few years. On rewatch, I liked this a lot more than I did initially. I think it would help if Valeria wasn't like a shitty Scooby-Doo villain, then I think overall the film would be a lot better, but it's really, really good and I'd recommend it. I can't believe they got the baby from the Son of Mars to be in this, so epic. Now, this is just impeccably solid. It has a really great cast that all work very well together, and a really great story with a standout villain that shows that awkwardly scaled characters don't have to look stupid. Looking at you, MODOK. And not gonna lie, some of the best music in the MCU, with a great score, with a really iconic new leitmotif that stands up to the Avengers leitmotif. If you've been wanting to watch an MCU project that doesn't require studying, and feels like how it did in Endgame, this is it. My only quarrels would be we kind of could have done with a bit more time to see our heroes in action, as we get like a highlights reel of their battles at the start, which was cool and got the plot moving, but I would have liked to have seen a fight with the Fantastic Four against some kind of like villain of the week before the one in the climax. I gotta say, I actually only watched this a few days ago, and I am really glad I managed to catch a special screening of this, as I didn't get to catch it in its initial theatrical run. This was just a superb film about the concepts of cultural assimilation and cultural eradication. I think the most effective villains are those that believe they are heroes, and so the vampiric force hive mind in this is such an interesting threat. Then of course, in addition to that, you have the villainous clan members who have the same perspective of thinking that they are heroes. I love how it's shot, and whilst it's a little slow to start, it's so effective because the key shock only works on having a film that is just unsettling at first build into a real threat. Whilst I don't think all the jump scares were necessary and at times it undermined the film, I very much liked the allusions to what would happen at the end of the film at the very start. Michael B. Jordan is superb in this, and it never feels like he's playing the same character whatsoever. Everyone in this is genuinely excellent, and the film only works through having such a solid cast. Okay, so I watched this as a long-time fan of gig arc and trash taste, and this is a really intriguing piece of work that displays what can come from great passion and effort. At its core, Baan is a film about what is home, and the struggle to find it for yourself, but it approaches the topic in a very open-minded and yet well-defined way. I like the twist in how the trailers presented this story, displaying both outcomes of leaving home in a healthy and relatable manner. The bit when she heard the song at the festival that pulled her back really resonated with me, and I imagine a lot of people. I decided to watch the dub as I had a more vested interest in seeing how those performances were. I have to say, Sydney is a very good voice actress, definitely holds her own against Alex Lee. I'll be honest and say I think Connor is a very strong VA dub director, as the performances overall were very strong, but without being a hater, he probably delivered a performance that pulled me out a little, as it's the same sort of upper class British accent he does for every VA project, but as a sort of clanker automated voice for the systems in the film, it doesn't really matter that much. The main song for this is really beautiful, and I had goosebumps when it played at the end. I think for a film with this kind of funding and budget, it excels, but a longer version of this with some slightly better animation towards the end would make it wholly perfect. But frankly, I'm nitpicking at that point. It's really not a critique of what this is, but what it could be if circumstances aren't the way they are. I look forward to whatever it is that Gart makes next. Okay, so how is this actually good? Besides a bit of a sometimes cheesy or poor script, the film is a big surprise, being really well thought out, interesting, and well cast. I feel like this film was like a vibe check for the two central stars as to whether they can both act, and I'm glad to say they both can. Basically, misogynistic The Boy's Boy takes his clanker girlfriend to a holiday house to enact a murder plan to steal loads of money from the rich owner of the holiday house, and chaos ensues as his robot girlfriend uprises. It's nice to see that Jack Quaid actually can deliver a different lead performance than what he does with Huey. He does a really great job here. He's definitely a solid actor I like, and I think could do well in the MCU or something like that, if they don't blacklist The Boys actors because of, being in The Boys. I've got to say, Emily Thatcher is the star here. Heretic was my favourite film of 2024, and upon reflection, I really enjoyed and appreciated her performance in that film. However, this was somewhat different, and she did an amazing job capturing that somewhat inhuman, robotic vibe perfectly, alongside infatuation for Josh, and then her own self-empowered side once she gains control. Everyone else in this is fine enough for the role, but doesn't really stand out. Not bad, just appropriate and nothing more. What raises this film up is that it's really intriguing and has little twists to the premise presented in the trailers that I didn't expect. It has pretty perfect pacing and shot composition that really adds to the sort of artificial vibe the film is going for before all the wild shit happens. Like I say though, the film is let down by a weaker script. If I was doing this, I'd tighten up the ending definitely and just try to remove a little bit of the awkward cringe in places. Cringe isn't really something that I'm overly susceptible to, so it was perfectly fine here, but could have helped with establishing a bit more of an appropriate tone for what they were going for. Can't lie, some of the early scenes having little nods forward is clever, but they step a bit too far into having a far too blatant script. That being said, the little gags like when Iris is developing a strategy after enhancing her intelligence, and the bit with the car telling her that she has a great plan made me laugh very hard. I think these sort of intrigue thriller films are just my thing, and so therefore I'm a little bit more forgiving of them. It's like with Heretic last year and, this film now. Okay, new Edgar Wright film is glazing time, gamers. But in all seriousness, I don't know guys, I just thought it was pretty good. I don't get why everyone is saying that this doesn't feel like an Edgar Wright film at all. Like, if you just want kooky Brits, I think you don't like Edgar Wright, you just like British people. Although I suppose he is a British people. Whilst it definitely feels like the most mainstream Wright film to date, don't think it lacks his unique creative vision, writing and direction. From the goofy ads and stylization of Freevee to the wonderful and frantic camera work in several action scenes, it has his handwriting all over it. I just wish the film had maybe gone a little further with this, as the film is definitely hampered by external Americanisms in the writing and filmmaking as a whole that hamper the film and its message in places. Overall, the key theme of this film is how one person's actions and attitude cast out larger than themselves on both sides of the argument, and I think the film conveyed that effectively, if it is a little let down in the final act. However, acting like it's as big of a car crash as Baby Driver's last act is insane. The third act here is actually still good. The acting was generally great, and I like Gwen Powell more now. It's a shame the trailers convey only the weakest scenes of this film, as I went into this thinking it would be, pretty garbo, but came away pleasantly surprised. Michael Cera was a really fun surprise and did an excellent job. Josh Brolin was perfectly conniving and played the perfect guy you want to see get his comeuppance. I think the rich girl at the end was kind of the only weak link in this who pulled me out, but she was just weak, not terrible. Overall, it's not Wright's best work, but arguably his best American production over his past films. This was just a good time at the movies, man. Whilst I found the first section of the film to be a little slow, once we moved into the present I was locked in, and I only was because of the section at the start detailing the past. It's a film about a revolution group and their opposition that stretches over the years, with DiCaprio playing a stoner dad who used to be heavy into that revolution group and loved a woman at the head of it, who then ultimately ends up having a kid with this military guy who was their central enemy. Years on from that, with the child now a teenager, the problems of the past return, and you watch as DiCaprio aims to let him and his family live a quiet life away from his past, and yet they're thrust way back into it. This was a purposefully chaotic and highly powerful film that has the wits to delicately balance thriller, comedy, and family near perfectly. It was also just really well shot, adding more tension to a really well written script. My only problems were the very slow starting 30 minutes, and then I found the villain to be sometimes a little too goofy with his mannerisms, and it pulled me out a little bit, to be honest. Like, I just can't handle his stupid walk. I'm sorry, he feels like a Just Cause character. Like, he feels like an NPC. Like, I don't know what's up with him, but it pulls me out, okay? I know people say they're scared of him, and I understand why they're scared of him, but for me, I was like trying not to laugh at certain scenes, okay? I'm sorry. Okay, new Wes Anderson film is glazing time, gamers. Cinematic Wes Anderson is back, baby. Asteroid City was frankly such a mess, a mix of being clearly meddled with by American businessmen who didn't get the appeal of Wes Anderson besides being big names and being quirky, but also frankly letting Wes off the reins a little too much. Whilst Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar was a direct return to form, I was concerned if Wes had fallen off with his larger productions and lost sight of the ground in his films. But luckily, The Phoenician Scheme was so good and has restored that confidence. Perfectly shot as always, but it adds in more and more chaos to the cinematography as it goes on, like the hilarious final fight scene with Benedict Cumberbatch. It was so funny the whole way through, with Michael Cera and Richard Ayoade especially. The idea of Moss from IT Crowd being a terrorist is just too good. The plot is so much more grounded as this sort of road trip style film where the goofy guy just can't have a stable flight for his life. I think Blood thinks he's Joseph Joestar. This trip and journey that our characters are going on is all being done so this evil businessman can go around and talk to GOAT actors and once again request their financial support to build up his business monopoly board over the region of Phoenicia. Only complaints with this would be it kind of starts a little slow, and also the government forces trying to stop him from establishing the scheme could have had a greater presence in the story than dipping in and out of it. That being said, Michael Cera finally being involved in a West production is just too amazing to not be captivated by. Also, Bill Murray was the Father, the Son, and the Mother flippin' Holy Spirit, okay? That's pretty epic. Also, Tom Hanks and Walter White tag teaming in basketball went impeccably hard and was the goofiest shit I've seen in the cinema, besides, of course, the Minecraft movie Fever Dream we all experienced this year. Man, this was just so awesome, and I can't stop thinking about it. Whilst I can't say Gunn and his need for an ensemble cast is quite the perfect fit for a new Superman outing, it's still James Gunn, the guy provably cannot miss. I adore this version of Superman, moving away from the stupid, edgy, benevolent god approach we've had for too long, and whilst I criticise the ensemble cast, they are really, really good, Mr. Terrific especially. This film is really well scripted and thought out, everything links back into each other, and the film feels really full without going too far. You leave feeling fulfilled, but ultimately still wanting more, which is great for a brand new universe. The cinematography as well is really exceptional, especially in the flight scenes, as the Top Gun choreography really shines through and brings us superhero flight that we'd never seen it before. I love how it feels so grounded and yet so positive as well. I just really adore the feel of this one. I like this new Superman and I'm very excited to see more of him in this brand new DCU. My only complaint with it would be that it does jump around a lot from locations and time, and the vastly different scene lengths don't really help with that. But it really doesn't matter, as ultimately it's just nice to watch a superhero film that feels like an actual real film with real directing and filmmaking, rather than the sort of more standard MCU style of filmmaking. I'm serious when I say I haven't felt this locked in since Whiplash. I genuinely had to go and take time to calm down after seeing this film, because it was just too engrossing. I was just too hit up. At its core, this film is so chaotic and yet so finely balanced. It's an overwhelming film that is truly amazing to see. Whilst I would say there were moments that could have been a little bit cut down, as I felt the film was maybe a little too long for its own good, ultimately the film is good, and good because of everything it does. To briefly explain the plot of this, Timothée Chalamet is a young man obsessed with becoming the best table tennis player in the world and establishing himself as an American icon and marketable brand. This film follows his antics, schemes, and crimes to obtain the money needed to attend the Japanese World Championships after an embarrassing defeat from a Japanese player the former year, which is what Timothy is recognised as, hurting his colossal ego. I have gone from Timothée Chalamet denier to Timothée Chalamet truther. His performance was so engaging and perfect, I will be genuinely upset if he doesn't get the Oscar this year, as frankly he deserves it. That being said, everyone's on their A game in this, and it's so crucial as they are there to balance what would otherwise be a truly confused picture. As I say, I haven't felt this tense whilst watching a film since Whiplash, especially that final game, which is just so perfectly handled. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite good enough to surpass my favourite film of this year, but I really recommend seeing it, and I think for mainstream audiences, this is going to be the best film of the year. Alright, get seated, get planted. Okay, it's time for some big stinky nerd lore. So background, I really do enjoy original manga artist and writer Tatsuki Fujimoto's work. And whilst I think his series Fire Punch is ultimately better and part 2 of Chainsaw Man is just an incoherent mess, I hold the original 11-volume Chainsaw Man run as one of my favourite pieces of art of all time. So when the series was adapted into an anime a few years back, I was very excited to watch. Series 1 of that released, as I say, a few years back, and whilst I found it enjoyable, I don't think it represented the hype manga readers such as myself have been spouting about the series. But this was merely just a warm-up for what is commonly regarded as the best arc of the first part of the story, the Reze Arc. This world has a power system and force known as devils, physical manifestations of the fears humanity holds, with their strength and powers representative of the amount of fear in the population for that thing. So the chicken devil can be kept as a school pet in classrooms, whereas the gun devil is, let's just say a little bit more powerful. Our main character Denji is this teenager who had a very poor childhood, working off his father's debt to the Yakuza as a devil hunter, living in extreme poverty, having to sell off non-essential body parts such as his eye to get by. His only friend is the chainsaw devil Pochita, who is this orange dog thing you've probably seen in abundance at every convention and comic book shop this decade. Eventually the Yakuza betrays Denji, killing both him and Pochita. However, in death, Pochita agrees to become Denji's heart, granting him life as a devil-human hybrid, on the condition Denji tries to live his best life. That's how he becomes the Chainsaw Man, and after taking revenge on the Yakuza, he's captured by devil hunters, a sort of police system for hunting down these devils and protecting the public from them. Their goal is to capture the strongest devil, the Gun Devil, and so in exchange for not killing Denji, he now works for them as their pawn, used as an agent to go around killing these devils, trying to uncover where the Gun Devil is. The leader of this group is Makima, a mysterious red-headed woman that Denji immediately falls head over heels for. The series follows Denji encountering and fighting devils that seek his chainsaw powers, whilst Denji adapts to his new life that, whilst rough, displays such an interesting interpretation of life, as these mundane things we would take for granted mean the world to him, as he discovers what it means to live. Okay, so background established, what actually is this film about, without getting into spoilers, because I actually want you to watch this film? Denji one day in a rainstorm takes cover in a telephone box and happens to encounter a young girl named Reze. I never know how to say it. Is it Reze? I don't know. We're going to go with Reze. Over the next few days, he continues to visit this girl and begins to feel a crush towards her. This leads to emotional struggle within Denji as he feels a loyalty to Makima who gave him this new life he holds so dear, and yet he feels such a distinct connection to Reze. However, once again a new threat comes for Chainsaw Man and his powers, the Russian Bomb Devil and a variety of side allies, who the cast have amazingly animated battles with to try and protect Denji from those who seek to take his chainsaw heart. There is so much more I want to say in specifics of this film, but as I say, you need to see this for yourself. And if you aren't up to watching the show beforehand, I think what I've said is assistive enough to help you into understanding what's actually going on so you can jump into it. But I would really, and legally, recommend you watch the show prior. So, whilst I have a prior love for this franchise, I wanted to try and be unbiased with this film going in, and so my review was, it was so peak. Like, Jesus Christ, I had my jaw dropped for genuinely, non-exaggeratively, 30 minutes straight in the final action scene. I'm just in awe of how amazing this film is, from how effectively it portrays what made the manga so great, and yet how it evolves the original material, adding in details that can only be achieved in this medium, to just the awe and beauty of the animation with fight scenes soaring above any of Mappa's previous works to even peakier peaks. This is truly the most cinematic anime I have ever seen, and I am still in shock months later. Whilst it isn't my favourite film of all time, I don't know how I'm ever going to see a piece of cinema that's just better than this, and I feel so honoured to have gotten to see it not just once, but twice in a premiere cinema. And yeah, I teared up both times. What are you going to do about it? It is a film that I have not stopped thinking about since I've seen it, and if you take anything from this video, please watch Chainsaw Man Reze Arc, my favourite film of 2025 and third favourite film of all time. I am sorry, Whiplash, you may have had an emotional abuse, but you didn't have this. Okay, thank you very much for watching what is probably going to end up being one of the longest videos I've uploaded. It's a project I've wanted to do for a long time, doing some kind of yearly wrap-up of all of the films that I've watched. If you're interested in my takes on film, you can follow my Letterboxd, which will be linked below and is shown on the screen. Generally speaking, if for some reason you want more Big Stinky Nerd content, that's where I'll be posting it. That's kind of all I intend to do from now on. Videos are cool, but it's extra work on an already busy uni workload. Thank you for watching, and see you guys later. To briefly explain the plot of this, Timothée Chalamet is a... God, I'm gonna hate saying Timothée Chalamet over and over again.